And we're now going to turn our focus on the first discussion, our very first interview with a national figure in Antigua and Barbuda. The Democratic National Alliance has lost a number of its core players within the party in the persons of First Vice President Bruce Goodwin, the chairperson Malika Parker, the Secretary General Gatesworth James, and candidate for St. George's, most recently Kelton Dalso. And this, of course, is on the eve of an election. 6 out of the 10 founding members have left the party. This also includes Sylvester Brown, one of the founding members and interim mobilization officer, and his wife, Joanne Brown, interim treasurer, who spoke recently after walking away from the party. For the first time on Twin Island Media, we are giving the leader, the president of the Democratic National Alliance, a fair chance to set the record straight and to address the political future of her party. We want to welcome once again, and it's an honor to have her as our first guest, well, at least our first guest this morning here on Wake Up Call, President of the DNA, Joanne Massiah. Good morning.
Good morning, Daren, and good morning. I think I heard Julian's voice. To both of you, indeed to all of Antigua and Barbuda and those listening further afield. And let me congratulate you all for this monumental move, which I know all of the people of Antigua and Barbuda, bar none, are looking forward to bring back journalistic integrity, ethical standards, fairness, and a balanced view to the issues plaguing Antigua and Barbuda, and just generally bring a new voice into the media space.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Massiah. Now, let's start. For all the citizens and voters in Antigua and Barbuda who are joining this conversation, why should they continue to take the day? Given how I introduced this discussion, with the hemorrhaging that some would characterize that your party has experienced, why should they continue to take the DNA as a serious contender in the next general elections?
Well, thank you for that question. I wish to say that the DNA is stable, it is focused. We are new, we are fresh, we're dynamic. We have said to the people of Antigua and Barbuda that we are about transformational leadership. We want to bring about into the political arena in Antigua and Barbuda a politics that is different. A politics where our leadership and governing style departs from what we're accustomed to. And listen, the departure of these former members of the DNA have not at all rocked the DNA. The DNA is more than those who have departed. The DNA comprises men and women, some who are seen and some who are working in the background, who remain fiercely committed to the ideals of our party and our vision to catalyze and transform the development of Antigua and Barbuda. And so persons departing political parties is not a new phenomenon in Antigua and Barbuda at all. When you look at the current government, we see persons who were very, very integral to and aligned with the United Progressive Party, persons such as the Honorable Dean Jonas, the Honorable Melford Nicholas, both of whom who held executive positions in the UPP at one point or another. We also see Minister of Foreign Affairs Ched Green. When you look at the UPP slate, you see persons who would have left the Labour Party, persons such as Sherfield Bowen, who was not only a candidate, but an elected member of Parliament for the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party a few election cycles ago. We look at Sean Bird, who is a significant member of the Antigua and Barbuda.
Ms. Massiah, if you would permit me, I understand, and I think listeners understand the point that you're making. But in the case of the in the case of the United Progressive Party and the Antigua Barbuda Labour Party, those are much more established institutions. The DNA is essentially trying to establish itself, trying to, as you say, we want to usher in transformational leadership in the country. And when you have, some would use the word bloodletting within your party, where senior members of your party appear to be leaving in droves, the perception is what's going to be most important. They hear what you're saying, But do you realize that you have, or do you believe that you have an issue with perception as far as stability in your party is concerned?
Listen, we all know that in politics, perception is reality. But what I can say is that what voters in particular should focus on is the fact that those who have departed, I think, were clearly engaged in the politics of counterintelligence. I say that because persons tell on themselves by their words, their actions, and their attitudes. And counterintelligence is clearly a part and parcel of politics. When we evaluate those who have departed, we recognize, and have recognized for a long time, that they have virtually been inactive in the party for a long time. These are among persons who would have in 2019, following certain uh, um, correspondence, I should say, received from the leader of the UPP to join what was then an action to protest against, I believe it was the Global Ports at that time. The party came to a unanimous resolution that we would not engage in any kind of merger, any sort of association with the UPP or any other affiliate group. I remember there was a Faithful Nationals, and that we would build our party. But it is obvious, not only based on their words on departure, but their attitudes, that they were engaged in a clear counterintelligence strategy. And I think people should look at them. People should examine their attitudes, their words, and their actions, because to us, it clearly demonstrates a lack of fidelity to the DNA and indeed the voters of Antigua and Barbuda. But I want to assure the public that the DNA is in a good place. The
Right.
persons who are left, I hear a lot of utterance about how great they are. All of the people, in my opinion, in the DNA are great in their own right. And so all of us, bar none, would have participated and continue to participate in the work of building the DNA. So what we've had is a shared effort. And I do not rank anybody in the DNA higher than anybody else. My politics is a politics of an egalitarian style where my candidates and my colleagues know that I value each and every one of them. And listen, people have choices to make. If it is that these departed members feel that they want to align with the UPP, so be it. What I do know is that in politics, which is war without bloodshed, that nobody trusts a double agent. Nobody really takes seriously those who would have sought to undermine, if you will, from inside. But I wish them well. We in the DNA wish them well, and we will continue on our mission to share with the public our policies, our programs, our approach to exposing the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party for what we consider to be one of the greatest breaches, one of the greatest heists, if you will, of taxpayers' resources and so on. And we will continue to expose as well the United Progressive Party's shortcomings. When we look at the issue of justice, for example, that was promised, that ushered in the UPP, of which I was a part then, and I believed it, that we were about bringing justice to the people of Antigua and Barbuda for what we then dubbed one of the greatest heists of taxpayers' monies coming out of the IHI scandal in particular. 10 years on, 2004 to 2014, not a word, nothing had been done. When I say nothing, nothing concerted. We were told, and we repeated, myself included, the narrative that, oh, there were so many injunctions filed by one of the chief offenders. Listen, certainly the amount of money, taxpayers' money, that would have been spent to probe this IHI scandal by one Mr. Lindquist, whose report has never been made public, yet millions of taxpayers' dollars were spent with this investigation. Surely the United Progressive Party government could have found, and indeed did find, an able jurist to prosecute this matter.
Bear with me, Ms. Massiah. Yes. I'm looking very nervously on the clock. So let's move on from that response. Yes. Now, I'm reading a portion of your statement in response to the resignation of Mr. Kelton Dalso, and I read in part, yes. We wish to thank former Colonel Kelton Dalso for doing the party a favor by formally submitting his resignation, given his general open hostility, aggression, and uncooperativeness towards colleagues since his appearance on the Dave Lester-Payne show back in February of 2022. Some of your critics thought that that statement was, it sounded like, don't let the door hit you on the way out. And that's not the sort of attitude that the party should have had upon such a resignation. Do you agree with that? Do you think the statement could have been worded differently in hindsight?
Daren, listen, anything can be amended or dealt with differently in hindsight. But the fact of the matter is, we put out a statement which I will stand by, and I do not have time to deal with persons who I deem politically irrelevant at this time. For us in the DNA, our focus are the candidates in the constituencies in which we are contesting, which is the 16 on the mainland, and I really do not wish to spend any time
have all the positions
departed among us.
Have all the positions been filled since the resignations of these 6 individuals? Have they all been filled?
We will be launching the candidates for the 2 remaining seats very, very shortly. One will be launched actually or announced today. The one for Rural West, our colleague Stephen Richardson, his announcement has been made. Okay. And another will be made today, and the one for St. George.
You care to share who that individual is?
No, we're going to do it in our usual style. In our usual fashion, we will issue a press release. Okay. What I would like to do is invite persons to our public engagement tomorrow and follow us and just come on out and support the DNA. People, Daren, people have confidence in the DNA. If I just may, just a moment more, if I just may say, I recall the famous last words from the leader of the UPP when the DNA was launched, where he said that the DNA is nothing but a sideshow. And our second vice president, colleague Anthony Stewart, came back and he said, be careful that the DNA does not become the main attraction. And when we look at what is happening on the political landscape of Antigua and Barbuda, it is clear that the DNA is a major attraction. Because if not, why would the other opposition party work so hard to try to poach our candidates? Why is it that they continue to speak so vulgarly, so vile against our members? If somebody is not in your foreview or in your rear view, why pay attention to them? But we say we will contest this election, all 16 seats. We will bring our programs and policies to the electorate of this country, and we are pretty certain that we will disrupt the status quo in Antigua and Barbuda politically.
Let's move on to the next question here. Is the DNA committed to removing the leadership of the Antigua Barbuda Labour Party as the government, or is the focus to ensure that the UPP is not successful in copying any marginal seats, especially, as critics have persistently asserted? They say that you're focused a lot on the UPP and not enough on the Antigua Barbuda Labour Party. How do you respond to those claims?
I would say that those who are pushing that narrative are clearly not paying attention. And I wish to say categorically that the DNA is not aligned with the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party. The DNA is not aligned with the United Progressive Party. We are on a political battlefield where there are 3 major players fighting for the hearts and the minds of the people of Antigua and Barbuda. We're not going to ease up on any one of them. I have been one of the harshest critics of the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party. And I want persons to recall that I was one who was out there nightly criticizing their management of the COVID pandemic. You will remember, I made a particular statement that went viral, that was played almost nightly for weeks on the UPP-aligned Observer Media House. How How now, if we criticize constructively, if we point out the shortcomings of the UPP, we're suddenly aligned with the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party? Listen.
Well,
Yes,
the argument is the object of all political opposition forces in the country is to dislodge the Antigua Barbuda Labour Party. And by criticizing the United Progressive Party, you're essentially doing the dirty work, quote unquote, of the Labour Party for them.
No. What we are doing is we are showing the people of Antigua and Barbuda that neither the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party nor the United Progressive Party deserves their vote. We have tried them both. And we say, you have tried the red, you have tried the blue. It is time to try something new. And that something is the Democratic National Alliance. I have no brief for the UPP. And the UPP, just like the Antigua Labour Party, we see them as our opponents. And listen, at the end of the day, the electors will decide who they want to take them forward. This election, as we see it, is the mother of all elections. We see what has happened over the last 8 or 9 years, the mismanagement of the economy, the marginalization and the impoverishment of the people across societies and communities in Antigua and Barbuda. And we're saying we cannot continue like this. We have seen and we continue to experience a government that believes it has no obligation to be accountable to the people of Antigua and Barbuda. We have seen them just impose taxes left, right, and center without any explanation, without any consultation with the stakeholders who are most affected. And we're saying, listen, transformational leadership as we see it is one that takes a bottoms-up approach, one that consults with people because people's views matter, one in which we believe there has to be a partnership between people, industry, government in order to make our country work. And this is what we have to do. Our society has to be realigned. Our economy has to be redeveloped. And we're saying no other party, none of the other two parties has come out and spoken and shared views, policies, programs that we see will diversify our economy. What we have seen is that both of them have suddenly begun to speak about diversification of the economy. But when you look at this side work, there is none. And we're saying to the people of Antigua and Barbuda, pay keen attention. We need to usher in a new kind of politics and a different style of leadership. And that can only come about when you elect the men and the women, the capable men and women of the Democratic National Alliance.
All right, I'll tell you what, we need to share a quick message. In just a moment, we're going to pause for a break and we're going to continue this discussion with the president of the Democratic National Alliance right after this. It is now 7:33 in Antigua and Barbuda. Hope that you're making your way to start your day and your week safely here in Antigua and Barbuda. And we're continuing our discussion with the president of the Democratic National Alliance, Ms. Joanne Massiah. Ms. Massiah, just anecdotally, the feedback that tends to certainly come to my attention in the course of your, the various public exchanges that you will have in the various communities as you campaign in preparation for the next general elections, is that the feedback or the public response has not been very encouraging in terms of numbers of persons showing up, in terms of just visible representations of tangible support. Are you satisfied with the level of support that your party has been able to marshal as you go through the length and breadth of this country?
Daren, let me say, when we say we are new, we're fresh and dynamic, we're not having public meetings in the traditional sense. We are having public engagements. We say we go to the people, we meet them in their communities. And what is important is that our messages are penetrating people who are either on their verandas, inside their homes, who are following us via Facebook and so on. I want to remind the people of this country, that leading up to the 2014 elections, I don't think we've ever seen anything like that before. The UPP held what can be deemed a mammoth, what is it called?
Rally?
Oh dear, when you drive around the country,
Motorcade?
motorcade, a mammoth motorcade. That motorcade had no end. When we left and we got back into town, people were still coming up through Collins, and nobody in their right mind, nobody watching and assessing could have believed that the UP would have gotten the kind of trouncing that it got in 2014 because the Labour Party was not able to marshal that. Listen, people showing up at public rallies means nothing in terms of what they will do on election day. The most unpredictable person in an unpredictable thing in an election is that elector, you know? And so we are saying our messages are penetrating. That is what matters. We know that in Antigua and Barbuda, there's a politics of vindictiveness, there's a politics of marginalization. And people are simply afraid to come out to be aligned because they're afraid they're going to be ridiculed, they're going to lose their jobs, etc., etc. We are a new party. We have not been able to marshal, the Labour Party's been there for what, 75 years? The UPP almost 30. But we are satisfied when we speak to people, when we meet them where they are, in their homes, in their business places, in the supermarkets, on the streets. We are encouraged by the way in which they encourage us and the commitments that they are making. And we are targeting all demographics. We're targeting the Caribbean nationals, we're targeting young people, we're targeting seniors, we're targeting
All right, Ms.
everybody
Massiah?
across the left.
Yeah, understood. If
Yes.
I'm not sure to what extent you have a political consultant or pollster within your
Yes.
organization, but were such an expert to suggest to you that your political stock will be better served if you were to align with the United Progressive Party in order to dislodge the incumbent Antigua Barbuda Labour Party. Is that an option that you would be prepared to consider? Put the question another way. Have you closed the door categorically on any alliance or any partnership, any cooperation with the United Progressive Party, which is, incidentally, what almost all of those who've resigned have suggested needs to be done in order to effectively launch and mount a campaign against the Labour Party?
Politics is for the long haul. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint. Okay, and we are in the business of bringing about the necessary changes. We do have a strategist. In fact, our strategist is on the ground right now, and that strategist has been following our developments. He's been following what is happening in this country, and at no point up to yesterday has he said to us, "You need to join forces with the United Progressive Party." Let me also just say, we are not about convenient marriages of convenience, right? We're not about forming coalitions for its own sake, because from where I sit and from what we have analyzed, these marriages of conveniences, these so-called alliances invariably fail. Look at what's happening in St. Kitts. And you know the reason why they fail? They fail because there is really no consensus on philosophy. And I will forever give this example. The DNA is fundamentally opposed to the selling of passports because we believe that if we bring people together, if we continue to develop our proposals, we can diversify this economy. The UPP, like the Labour Party, they want the easy way out. In fact, one of the departed would have said years ago that the selling of passports is the lazy man's economy. When that grinds to a halt, which it soon will, what will we do? We have got to begin to believe in ourselves. We've got to reach out in Antigua and Barbuda and across the diaspora for persons who are able to bring new ideas to help us to develop our commitment to diversification, to move our country forward.
Right. So is that a no?
Let me say, at this time,
Mm.
we do not see that aligning with the UPP is going to be in the best interest of our vision and our mission. And I've said to my colleagues, I've said to my candidates, I have no horse to trade at this time.
1 second.
But who determines that? Maybe the interest of the country is to get rid of these two political parties which have not advanced the interests of this country, which have not advanced us developmentally. I know people are going to criticize me for saying this, but listen, where it comes to moving this economy forward, of the three persons on the political field who are likely to be the Minister of Finance, our Anthony Stewart is the most qualified. He is the best man on the ground to move this economy forward. We've tried Harold Lovell as Minister of Finance, and we see where that has led us. We need people who have competence, who are qualified, who have experience, and who understand not only money, but understand debt, understand diversification. And our man, our Anthony Stewart, is the most qualified to assume the role of Minister of Finance for the future.
You mentioned the political leader of the United Progressive Party. What of the current finance minister? Are you impressed with his performance?
Of course, I'm not impressed with the current prime minister. I just said of the three men on the ground that our Anthony Stewart is the best. Well, look at the state of our economy. Look at where we are. We have listen. I am curious to see. I'm curious to see what the budget for 2023 will look like, and I am hazarding a guess that we are going to see a budget of about $2 billion. Last time it was 1.6, right? With a deficit of 600 and something million dollars. We're seeing if people are paying attention. Our Prime Minister said that he believes, he says he's going to borrow himself out of debt. If ever there were an oxymoron, that is it. If ever there were recklessness, a reckless statement, that is it.
Right.
Because there's no way that our current revenues will ever allow us to come close to balancing a budget. And there's nothing wrong with deficit financing. Nothing is wrong with that. But we are saying he has just imposed taxes willy-nilly. He says, listen, that sector, I think you're making money. We're going to tax you. Where's the consultation? Where's the proof? Where's the empirical evidence? And what? We're not seeing what our taxpayers, tax dollars are doing for us.
We're going to have to make way for the news shortly, but I must ask you this question on the conclusion of our discussion this morning. Your political opponents have been labeling you as bitter. How do you feel about that? How do you respond to these assertions that you're acting out of bitterness and not really in the interest of the people of Antigua and Barbuda?
Purely hogwash. You want to see bitterness? You turn into Observer Radio from 11 a.m. to about 2 p.m. in the morning. There is where you will see the quintessential bitterness. What do I have to be bitter for? I am committed, and I've always been committed to the people of Antigua and Barbuda and to the nation state of Antigua and Barbuda. As a politician, I have never and will never engage in the politics of treachery, of bad play, of deceit or corruption. And so listen, labeling is part and parcel of politics. And they can come, those I know myself, and persons who know me do not recognize that person whom they're trying to paint. That is what is important. I have delivered in my political life in Antigua and Barbuda. In fact, if I just may end and say that the only program that the UPP to this day can boast about is the National School Meals Program, which me, Joanne Massiah, along with a group of able men and women who are technicians in this country, delivered that program, which still subsists today, not in the way I would like it, but it is still operating. Before 2014, the UPP could never say National School Meals Program and not mention Joanne Massiah either before or after. Today, they will say it. And if they could erase my name from the history of that program, they would have. Ask yourself, who is bitter? When they use their associates, I said, especially on that night program, to align, to malign, to paint people, to assassinate their characters. Who is bitter? What do I have to be bitter about? I love my country. I want to see it advance. And this is why I am where I am. Great is the DNA. And I'm encouraging the voters on election day to vote for the rose, that symbol of love, and put your X next to all the candidates on the DNA slate.
President of the Democratic National Alliance, Joanne Massiah, thank you very much for joining us this morning on Wake Up Call.